Hey folks, today I've got an absolutely nutty story to share that involves comedian Paul Lynde, where he watched a friend fall to his death right before his very eyes. Like I said, this one is absolutely crazy and 100% true, so hold tight and give me just a minute or so to talk about Paul. Growing up, I remember Paul best as Uncle Arthur on Bewitched and as a frequent guest on Donnie and Marie's variety show. And of course, his now legendary residency in the center square on the classic TV game show Hollywood Squares. During the later years of Paul's life, there was something there that you could almost see in his eyes. They had, without a doubt, seen their fair share of sadness that comes with not being able to be your authentic self all of the time. So when I stumbled across this article not so long ago, I knew that I needed to learn more about what had actually transpired. The actor who met this extremely sad demise was an inspiring young feller by the name of James Davidson. At the time of the accident, he was 24 and Paul was 39, and they were spending the night in San Francisco with plans to hit the town hard before returning to their room to recover. The scene of the accident was the Sir Francis Drake Hotel. It has since been renamed, but for the purposes of recounting what happened during the early hours of July 18th, I'm just going to call it the Drake. Paul and James had a room on the 8th floor of the Drake. After both arriving back to the hotel around 2 a.m., not sure why, but Paul went up first, and then James, escorted by a security guard, came up a few minutes later. After being dropped off, James wandered over to the open hotel room window, and looking straight at Paul, he said, "Watch me do a trick." Paul assumed that there must have been a large ledge or something that prankster James was crouching down on as he slipped out of the window. But then he heard James yell, "Help me, I'm slipping." Paul rushed over to the window and could see James hanging on for dear life. Paul quickly reached down and grabbed his friend's wrists, and he yelled for James to grab his neck, but it was all too late, and Paul saw James fall approximately 80 feet to his death. Coverage of this horrific accident was relatively minimal. While the story hit most newspapers a day later on July 19th, it had pretty much been forgotten by the time James was laid to rest a few days later. And Paul soldiered on. His career, while definitely noteworthy, was always something of a personal dissatisfier for him. Despite his own personal misery throughout his career, Paul Lynde found ways to make many others smile.